Welcome back to The Big Issue. My name is Godfred Akoto-Boafo this morning, discussing the murder of an 11-year-old boy in Kasoa by two of his friends, one 16-year-old and one 18-year-old, and discussing the opening it has provided. It's a question of greater society and what we prioritize and how we can make things better within our society. So I've been having this conversation with Professor Odriga Dzekpo of the University of Ghana. She's the Dean of the School of Information and Communication Studies. Justice Tankabe, PhD, criminologist at the Cambridge University. And of course, lawyer Martin Kpebu, who I'm going to deal with now. If you've just joined us, you can send in your messages, 0549986996, 0549986996, and 0550-585832, 0550-585832. So, lawyer Kpebu, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so let me just also go back to this information that has come forth. We heard the prosecutor in court, for instance, say one of the alleged killers is I don't know if the right term would be repeat offender, because he hasn't killed anybody before, but he's been detained before by the police for a second offender, one would say. Is that a correct term to use?
Yeah, so recidivist.
Yes,
repeat offender, we call them recidivist. But please, Godfred, let's be careful.
Yes,
I've also heard the grandfather of the juvenile say that no. So meaning that it was a case, but he was never convicted. So let's at least, I heard on one of the radio stations where the grandfather spoke that no, he wasn't. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Before we start recidivist.
Okay, my larger question is you've spoken about the system, and I'm just asking if it's designed, looking at the population growth and how young our population is the system designed to handle juvenile crime at this level, to ensure that, one, we prevent it, because that is the most important thing, and to also reform as well?
Okay, yes, I think that the major thing, I would say our system is largely good for that purpose if we use the period of incarceration as a yardstick. Because the periods are not lengthy, that is to say, even from the serious offenses is 3 years. And remember that even for those ones, that is the maximum. The 3 years we are mentioning is called the maximum. It's not the minimum. We at the end of it can say, even the university. And some years ago, we did one like that. The child is about to end. So there's no purpose sending the child to the senior correctional center for 3 years. No, I'd rather let the child sign the bond to be of good behavior and go to university. Okay? So what we are left with is conscientizing and continuous training for the actors in the system, especially the police. You know, the police are not lawyers. They are performing that duty because the Attorney General cannot recruit enough lawyers. And so remember that when somebody is a police, he has a certain mindset, generally. He's tough on crime. So when you make the police a prosecutor, it's conflicting. A prosecutor is a minister of justice. He's totally different from a policeman. So, okay, at least for now, we can ask for improvements. We can need is better training for the policemen and more resources for the judges too, and the social welfare officers in the court. Godfred, the juvenile court is made up, let's say the judge sits with 2 social welfare officers. So we need to train them better. Of course, judges in law, we say we are always learning. So every judge is always learning. So the judges also need more training, more exposure to other juvenile systems across the world. And I think we would make progress. So if you ask me, between amendment of the law and better training and resources to make us more efficient, I will go for better training and resources. Because the law as it is now, if we want to apply, it's good. Godfred, there is another provision which says that, so when you've caught the juvenile of having committed a crime, rather than send him to court, there is opportunity to, as I've said, at least I watched one case in which at the Ministry Police Station, the inspector did the caution. Of course, me and my colleague lawyers in the juvenile justice, we are always so many, okay? So maybe we may not see everything around the country. But in about 13 in this field, that provision that you can warn the juvenile, I will not using it more often, because to pay 80 cedis for them to release the juvenile, because we're going to process him for court. So as Minister of Justice, he didn't see sense in it, and he paid the complainant the 80 cedis, and then said they should let the juvenile go. So we need to use the law more, we need more training, and then before we can ask for more amendment, because Ghana sometimes is a small problem, we begin to ask for amendment when we've not utilized fully what we have, you see? And then let's also mention that at the correctional center, they have 18 different kinds of treats that they give to these children, okay, juveniles, when the person, in the event that the judge decides that the juvenile should go into detention. So carpentry, masonry, electrical wiring, and so on and so forth. Then there is also a GHS. And then for the SHS, they allow the juvenile to come out, some of the schools around, you say. So maybe we need to support the correctional center to build a fully fledged senior secondary, perhaps, you say. Yeah, so these are some of the things.
Then let me ask this. It takes us a bit back, but it's my final question on this. When you spoke about, a lot of people are quite worried by the fact that they are saying you see a lot of this in court, in juvenile court. But the difference in this perhaps is for them, the motivation. They say a lot of the examples you gave, for instance, deal with situations that were accidental. So an accidental kick, somebody pushed somebody. Then you have the sexual offenses as well. But this is a clear situation of somebody having a motivation and executing a plan that perhaps was foiled somehow, allegedly. Does that situation still hold regarding the law?
Oh, yes. Godfrey, I think it's better. Let's be very, very clear, okay? So that it helps us. Yes, because that is not their area. Yes, I understand people will be disturbed. But that is the nature of crime. It's either this or that. The factors are many and the motivations vary. By all means, Godfrey, I'm not saying we shouldn't condemn it and increase the education. That's what we are doing. So please, for the avoidance of doubt, we are all making it very clear that we don't agree with a totally abhor a situation where juveniles are killing for rituals. Please, the cases I do in court are secondary trauma. So I'll be the last person to say this is not a serious case. But these ones are too obvious. So we can't spend very precious time talking about the obvious. So I thought we'll talk about the areas where we need education. I'm not saying this can go on. I'm just saying that there are other things. That is the nature of children. Look, Godfrey, let's make it very clear. Look, when we were younger, okay, in teenage years, these older people now at the helm of affairs in Ghana, the older ones, most of whom have died, used to accuse these persons now in charge of being lazy, get rich quick. Get rich quick has always been there. Look, even before the charlatanic adverts, that's the adverts about money doubling, before they became popular, please, you watch the movies in the 90s, Sika Sum Sum, What Obo, and What Wawa. Don't you see snakes vomiting money? So we have a situation where people are not into this area, a teacher who is maybe a mathematics teacher, so every day his mind is on mathematics, English, science, and then all of a sudden he hears this. It can disturb him. But please, we are actors in the field, and I'm telling you that, Godfrey, we can do a full debate on it. Take the movies in the 90s, Sika Sum Sum, Obo, and so many. You see snakes vomiting money and all that. So money doubling is not a new phenomenon. And then number two, I can tell you for a fact, we can go for the tapes. The people in charge now, generally, heads of institutions and the rest, decades ago, the older ones gave them the same accusations that they are not working hard. The youth of today are lazy. They are interested in get rich quick. So get rich quick has always been part of our discourse. As far as I can remember from being a child, I remember it's always been around. So please, let's put this into perspective so that we don't get panic attacks as if get rich quick just came today. And that's why I come from, I can even remember Kwame Nkrumah's son, Probedu and the Golden Birds. What did Lee Kuan Yew say? Lee Kuan Yew in his book, chastised Kwame Nkrumah's Probedu and the rest. So we've always had this conversation. So it's good. This example dating back from Kwame Nkrumah and the Golden Bird, Probedu Golden Bird and all that. You see that get rich quick has always been part of our cultural ethos. There's always been that conflict. Yes, that's how society develops. A deviant will commit an offense, then it gives us an opportunity to remind ourselves and to warn others not to do it. So this is what we are doing. We are not encouraging juveniles to go and commit offenses.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Martin Kpebu, private legal practitioner. Thank you very much, Professor Audrey Gadzekpo, Dean of the School of Information and Communication Studies, University of Ghana, and Dr. Justice Tankabe, Cambridge University. He's a criminologist. He has some very interesting papers that you guys should read. Professor Gadzekpo as well, for those of you at home who want to learn a lot more about communication and journalism. You can go online and read a lot of their work. And Lawyer Kpebu as well is ever present on a lot of our news programs. So thank you very much for joining us. Let's move on to the second part of the show. Now,
thank you for having us.
Always a pleasure. Let me move on to, I will read a couple of messages that are coming through regarding this matter, but let me just introduce my next topic. And for this, I'm going to talk a bit about COVID. Yes, somebody will ask, why are you talking about COVID? Well, if you look at the COVID numbers, it looks like case management has improved significantly. But the main issue on the table is what happens to the rest of the vaccines. We know that Ghana had set a target of vaccinating almost 20 million people based on certain projections from availability of COVAX vaccines from the COVAX Gavi facility. But over the past month or so, we've noticed that there's a situation there based on the lack of vaccines, especially the AstraZeneca that we are using. For instance, we were told this week that we were getting 300,000 more vaccines, but these ones are Sputnik V's. So those who have taken the AstraZeneca cannot take the Sputnik V. So that's for a different set of people. Questions have also been asked about when are we getting the next batch, because we're supposed to get the second dose sometime in May. Now we are being told June, July. So we'll try and get some clarity on this, because it does look like countries do want this, but it is not available unless you are buying. And even if you are buying, which ones are you buying? Are you buying the Pfizer? Are you buying the BioNTech? And for you at home, you might ask, okay, why is this important to us? Because the vaccines, we do need to get the vaccines, and vaccination is good. A lot of Ghanaians have taken it up. We're told almost 400,000 Ghanaians have been vaccinated from the first batch. But going forward, what happens to the second dose and other doses going forward? So we'll try and get some answers on that. I'll be doing this with the President's Special Advisor on Health, Dr. Nsia Asare, Nana Kofi Kwache, a regular public health specialist with us, and Dr. Kwame Sapon-Asiedu. He's a pharmacist and also a fellow with CDD Ghana. So I guess I'll start with Nana Kofi Kwache on this. Nana Kofi, good morning.
Good morning, Godfrey. Thank you for having me. Good morning, Godfrey. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. And let me also say good morning to Dr. Nsia Asare. Okay, Dr. Nsia Asare will join us. And Dr. Kwame Sapon-Asiedu, also good morning to you.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
All right, then. Nana Kofi, let's start the conversation then. Case management seems to be going on well. The vaccination process that was put in place, we had a lot of fears prior to the beginning of the vaccination process, but if you look at the numbers that we've been provided, it looks like a lot of Ghanaians did take up the opportunity to get vaccinated. But the question now is, should we be worried about the availability of the second dose? Because you don't take the second dose, the first dose does not mean much, especially if it is the AstraZeneca. And that is where the problem seems to be. what exactly is happening? Why does it seem like there's so much controversy around the AstraZeneca, especially on availability?
Well, again, thank you for having me. The current challenge that Ghana is facing is one that's shared by most low and middle-income countries around the world. The issue here is that Ghana and most countries in Africa are relying on COVAX and the African Union to be able to get their supplies of COVID-19 vaccines. COVAX and the African Union both were planning to source much of that from the Serum Institute of India in the form of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Unfortunately, India's own domestic challenges right now have made it so that they have temporarily banned exports of the vaccine. And what that has meant is that since March 24th, no vaccines have been shipped out of India. That meant that COVAX deliveries that were expected in March and April were rescheduled. It looks like those are coming in May or June, most likely June. And even that is still based on the idea that India will be able to ramp up its production in time to satisfy its domestic needs and then begin to reopen exports again. And if you look at the factors there with the rates of production they're doing and how far they are in their vaccination program, I think their coverage right now is about 6% of the population. They still have a long way to go before they'll be in a position to really ease off those restrictions. So it's creating a scenario where, at least the industry is in the proximal cause, but it's creating a scenario where COVAX and the AU cannot supply AstraZeneca at the timelines that they thought they would. And that's creating a challenge for countries that have already given the first doses in figuring out what they're going to do in terms of subsequent procurement. Nigeria, for example, has already said that they are directing, community health centers that after they've used half of their stock that they currently have, they should stop vaccinating and keep that other half so that the people who are vaccinated earliest in their initial phase can get those shots available to them around late May or June, in the eventuality that the COVAX program actually cannot meet those timelines. But this is part of a broader pattern of vaccine nationalism that is being driven fundamentally by a lack of knowledge sharing and a lack of information sharing by pharmaceutical companies with manufacturing plants around the world that have the capacity to manufacture but don't know how. And much of the time, the countries that are blocking this access are countries like the USA, the UK, the EU as a bloc, Switzerland, Japan, who are themselves going very far ahead in their vaccination plans, but are preventing the sharing of this knowledge that would actually make the global supply shortages a little bit less dire. But as it stands right now, we're definitely in a position where we should be having a more constructive conversation about how to either preserve some doses or about alternative sources through bilateral deals to make sure that we are not leaving people on the ledge.
The situation you describe, it's a bit worrisome. Somebody might ask, so do we go the Nigeria path where we say, okay, the 400,000 people that we have we have vaccinated, let's halt for AstraZeneca now, let's hold on, because we are not too sure of where the next supply is coming from. We have the Sputnik V coming in. We have 300,000 doses of those. So we rather start with that one and preserve the supply we have for AstraZeneca for those who have been supplied. It does look like it will become a decision. And Dr. Kwame Sapon said you can also come in. It does look like governments might start having to make some pretty difficult decisions that citizens might start raising eyebrows at.
Well, yeah, thanks for having me. Governments would have to make decisions. For some of us, we had been hinting at this as far back as December of last year. Because like Nana Kofi said, at that time, only 15 countries had held in trust 1.3 billion doses of of vaccines, of all the different vaccine combinations you could think of. Then there was the fact that the only production that could easily come to lower middle income and lower income countries and the likes of Africa was going to be in SII, which is the Serum Institute of India. So if you looked at it, even though they are the largest vaccine producers globally, it was always going to be a tall order to supply India, which is over 1.2 billion people. If you assume that the herd immunity is about 75% of the population, which meant that they will have to vaccinate about 900 million people at pace in India to get to herd immunity to bring their pandemic under control, and at the same time supply the global requirements for COVAX. So some of us were of the opinion that governments should have started going into bilateral conversations with some of these vaccine manufacturers, and even with governments like the Indian government and other things, the Chinese government, the Russians, to try and get the system moving a bit. And then there were the likes of the boss of the World Trade Organization who were suggesting, again, and I said, that the technology for vaccine manufacture should be diversified so that production could be spread out a bit more. The problem with that is that if it happens, still disproportionately, Africa will be shortchanged. Because if you look at the African continent, there are only 3 countries with the capacity to produce vaccines. There's South Africa, which is already stretched because Johnson & Johnson are going to be producing them.
Yeah, we've been told.
Yes, and then there's Morocco. But they have a very small production capacity, and that's why they are getting their supplies from, China. And then there's Algeria. And that's it. So that in itself was also going to pose a challenge to Africa. So with that in mind, the WHO last week issued a directive on the use of vaccine combinations in a vaccine-constrained environment, which is on the back burner. The point is, when governments have to take these decisions, we need to look at the different vaccine technologies we have and look at a vaccine like the Sputnik, which in actual fact is 2 vaccines. It's not like the AstraZeneca where you get the first dose and the second dose and it's the same vaccine. The Sputnik is 2 different vaccines. So technically, that system of using 2 different doses is actually in play. And some Ghanaians are going to receive the Sputnik, so that's what they are going to get anyway. So with all the clinical trials going on currently to try and engineer that mechanism, and if you speak to immunologists, them saying that there shouldn't be any immunological challenge, it may just be that might be the route in the long run. The other thing is also a balance between the idea of how far does one dose take you? Because if you look like a country like the UK, they decided to vaccinate at pace with 1 dose to get to a large amount of the population. And at the moment, it's almost 60% of the population have gotten at least 1 dose, and about 12% have gotten both doses. The point is, if you look at the way the pandemic has been brought under control, 5-6 weeks ago, there were about 2,000 deaths a day in the UK. Now it doesn't go past 30. For the last 3-4 days, it's been 9, 10, and something like that. Hospitalization is down by 92%. Reinfections are down by 84%.
So the vaccines are working?
Yes, that has been established. But then the question is, when you're in a vaccine-constrained environment, are you better off giving 1 dose to everybody to try and bring this under control and gradually scale up your second dose, or you give 2 doses to a few people like the Nigerians are doing? Based on the data I've seen from Israel and from the UK, I'll be controversial and say I'd rather everyone gets 1 dose. So that's where I'll leave it for now.
No, I will not let you. I will not, Dr. Siedo, I will not let you leave it there for now, because it's a question a lot of Ghanaians are asking. I've had people text me and ask, look, I got the first dose, when am I getting the second dose? And because it was a fear people had expressed earlier. I have friends who came to me and said, until they were sure the second dose would come, they were not going to take the first dose. But the others went ahead and took it anyway. So you're saying, if you had your way, best thing to do, let's continue spreading the AstraZeneca we have around. Let's not go the Nigeria plan where they say, hold on, keep what we have, and then we give it back to those who have taken it already.
Right. Do you want that honest clinical explanation?
Yes, I do.
You want that emotional explanation?
I want a clinical explanation.
Okay. If you want an honest clinical explanation, when these vaccines were released, you remember the dosing sequence was 3 weeks. I mean, for even what you call all the mRNA vaccines, which is the Pfizer's and Moderna's of this world, it's 21 days between doses. When it got to the UK, the JVCI, which is the Joint Committee of Vaccination and Immunization, took a decision that the dose interval should be 12 weeks, based on the data they had from the AstraZeneca trials, because the AstraZeneca did a number of combinations. They did 3 weeks, they did 12 weeks, and they did 8 weeks. And that was why there was a whole controversy about the efficacy and people were going on. But the UK stuck their guns and said it has to be 12 weeks. That then allowed them to have a 3-month run rate of immunizing a lot of people with the first doses. We are now seeing the data from that position coming from Public Health England and Public Health Scotland. That is, and now we see how the pandemic has been controlled. And now with only about 6 million people having 2 doses, hospitalization is down, the country is opening up, and even the UK is thinking about strategies to prevent mutant strains from coming in. What does that tell you? That tells that if you can vaccinate a lot of people over a 12-week timeline, you can considerably decrease. Because the most important thing is the fact that what are the endpoints for vaccination? The endpoints for vaccination are to decrease hospitalization, to decrease mortality, and to decrease transmission. If the one dose has achieved all 3, based on the data coming out of Clelit in Israel and Public Health England and Public Health Scotland, then I ask myself the question, based on the data, do I want to try and protect a few people or protect the majority of people? If under the circumstances I have a biomedical hat on, I would go with protecting a lot of people, because that is what the data is saying. And that is why I said, you want an emotional answer or what do you call it, an answer based on the data. So that was why I wanted to leave it for now, but that's the explanation.
Okay, Nana Kofi, hold on for me. I'll come back to you. Let me just stay with Dr. Asiedu on this particular question. Now, we're aware of South Africa getting some kind of permission, and they've been quite aggressive with this. We realized their first attempt with the intellectual property issues where they wanted to get licensing and all that. They've been able to get a situation where they are going to produce some aspect, or from what we understand, they are going to either be allowed to fill vials or something, but basically they are going to be involved in some aspect of the vaccine production in their own country. From where you sit, is this a situation that perhaps we should also be looking at if we want to boost our own supply? Is it a viable option to look at?
Look, I was on a program with Nana Kofi in September of last year. And I did tell them that as someone who works in the sphere of pharmaceutical analysis, drug analysis, and pharmaceutical quality control, I have always insisted that the only way you get intellectual property in your country is to be at the table during medicines development. I mean, that has been shown throughout the years. Why is South Africa getting it? South Africa is getting it because they were involved in the clinical trials. They were involved with Johnson & Johnson, they were involved with AstraZeneca, and they were involved with Novavax. As a result, and I would explain this further, even the South African strategy for me is weak, and I'll tell you why it's weak. So as a result, they get to fill the vials, because when the trials were going on, the vaccines were being shipped, the biological products were being shipped in large quantities, and they were revialing in South Africa to do the trials. So they've got the technology in there now to revial. And that is why I, at that time, together with a lot of people, said Ghana should have been involved in the clinical trials and vaccine trials amongst our population. But other people took the view that we were not guinea pigs, and that wasn't our forte. Now, why do I say the South Africa strategy is weak? If you look at the top 4 countries with the largest coverage of immunization globally, you have at the top Israel, and then you have United Arab Emirates, you have Chile, and then you have the United Kingdom. Ordinarily looking, you say, what's the position of Chile and United Arab Emirates in the top 4. These guys do not have the technology to produce biological products. They do not have the scientific capability, and they don't even have manufacturing plants. I tell you what Chile did. A country of 90 million people, and they are not rich. They are middle income as us. Their president and their scientific advisory board decided that they would be involved in all the vaccine trials. So every single vaccine you see now, apart from Sputnik, was trialed in Chile. But they set one condition. You couldn't bring in the biological product for them to reval. You had to do the vaccine production in Chile. So when the vaccines got their emergency use authorization, as we talk now, Chile has in stock 88 million, and listen to that properly, 88 million doses for 19 million people. They can actually vaccinate their whole country 3 times over, and are now giving vaccines out. Yes, the data is there, and are now giving vaccines out to Latin America. How did they get it? Because they sat at the table of men and they were strategic. And that is the slight difference between the Chilean strategy and the South African strategy, and why, though both countries were involved in the vaccine development, Chile has an overabundance of vaccines and South Africa only starting to refill. It is a situation Africa has to learn from. And for me, we should have learned from the Ebola time that should have been our strategy. But being the people we are, we always are slow to pick up some of these things, and there's a history to it.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Nsiah is the Presidential Advisor on Health. He's joined the conversation. Dr. Nsiah, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for making time for us on the big issue this morning. So I guess the first thing I'll say is well done on the case management. Things are looking up on that side.
Thank you very much. You also say well done for the vaccine.
We will get to the vaccine. The vaccine, I have questions.
I thought you should have combined the two. Say well done on the case management and vaccine development. I'm saying this because we have about 65,000 vaccines, and we've deployed almost about 2/3 of it, and we are continuously deploying. So you should have said well done to us also on vaccine deployment and of all the safety mechanisms and safety measures that we have put in place, that we are monitoring it on a daily basis, both digitally and also through our health facilities and through our hotline. So you should thank us for that and encourage us that we do more.
Okay. But let me ask you about the supply concerns, though. Are these concerns genuine for the second dose? For this, I'm referencing just AstraZeneca.
Yeah, I think let me greet everybody and also greet my nephew, Dr. Siedu. I think he has brought out a very important point, which I just listened to him. The second dose, yes. The people who are taking the AstraZeneca now, we are doing exactly what he's saying. We always learn. We are learning from data. We are learning from science. You remember that initially, as he rightly said, AstraZeneca said, the second dose should be given within 4 weeks. And later on, a lot of work have been done. They say, we can give it between 8 to 12 weeks. Now, even there are new literature which is coming, as he said, that if vaccinate as many people as possible, let a large number of the population get their first dose, like they're doing in UK, they're doing in Israel, they're doing in the US. And then once you do that, it brings the morbidity, mortality, that is admission rate, and then the mortality rate that people are dying, and also the transmission of the virus also down. It's seen. I mean, UK has demonstrated it. Israel has demonstrated it. Even US is demonstrating it. So our aim is the AstraZeneca that we have. We will give it the first dose to as many people as possible, whilst government is doing everything possible through multilateral and bilateral means to also bring another batch of AstraZeneca to give the second dose. We are very hopeful, and I'm very, very hopeful that the 8 weeks to 12 weeks period that now from the literature that we have works. We will do exactly the same thing as other countries like the UK are doing. So this is exactly what you are doing. So there should be no fears about the next batch of AstraZeneca coming. We are working around the clock. The president is doing everything possible, doing bilateral engagements, especially with countries which are doing it. And we are sure it will come in. We are also looking at other places. For example, you are aware that we have given emergency use authorization through the Food and Drugs Authority to Sputnik V.
Yes.
And as I speak, anytime soon, we are getting the first batch of Sputnik V. In fact, we have a few Sputnik V in country, but we want to bring the other batch to make it just considerable amount of quantities that we have. Sputnik, as Dr. Siedu rightly said, is the first and second dose are two different vaccines altogether. The first dose is human adenovirus 26, and the second dose is human adenovirus 5. And luckily, Sputnik, because the interval is 3 weeks, about 3 weeks, they bring the two doses together. They call it shots. So they call or treatment. So when one dose of or one treatment of Sputnik is to give the first dose of human adenovirus 26 and repeat the human adenovirus 5 in about 3 weeks interval. So when they bring 300 of these, they will have to bring 150,000, so that we can give to 150,000 people. So we are filling in the gap of those who didn't take the AstraZeneca with other vaccines like Sputnik. We are working on Johnson & Johnson, which is only one dose. Johnson & Johnson, I understand, will even start giving to the Africa Medicine Supply Platform somewhere in the third quarter of the year. We are also working, we have Covaxin, who have brought also their particulars for us to have a look at it. Novaxin is there, Pfizer and Moderna. But doing so, we are also trying to revamp and also retool and refurbish our national cold chain system so that it can take vaccines even which comes with the ultra cold as 80 degrees. But for the meantime,
Hello, Dr. Nsiah.
I do this for us that we are doing. So it's what we are doing. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes. Your line went off a bit. Let me. So just to be clear.
So the concerns are there. Yeah.
Okay. So just to be clear on what the government's strategy is, you are saying that the plan is to vaccinate as many people as possible, and by this I'm referencing AstraZeneca first, because that is what we have a lot of. So rather than the Nigeria strategy of they saying they will hold the rest to vaccinate those who already took a first dose, our strategy is we will rather spread the AstraZeneca around as much as possible, one, and then also fill the gaps with the Sputnik that we are getting. And then when the second, when another batch of AstraZeneca is delivered, we continue that process. So we are not looking at an actual second dose stage anytime soon. Is that a fair question to ask?
No, it's not a fair question. What I said is that the first batch of AstraZeneca that we have,
yes,
which is over 900,000, we are giving the first dose to as many people as possible. Whilst we are working to get the second dose to give the second dose from 8 weeks to the people who are due to be given the second dose.
But we know the supply is a problem there. That's what I'm saying. Is that not what the issue is? The supply for the second dose. You don't have any guarantees.
That's why we have leaders. That's why we have leaders. Leaders are supposed to solve problems. So the leadership is solving the problem with the supplies. If you don't have problems, and then you are a leader, it means that you sit down, everything will work for you. But we are not doing the Nigerian style where we will divide the 960,000 AstraZeneca we have in the country into two. No. If you remember, what we did the first phase in the 43 districts. Now we have expanded it to at least vaccinate all the health workers throughout the whole country. And we have even, in other places, we've even added other essential health workers to what we are doing in the other regions and other districts. So we are giving that out, and we are working around the clock to get, and I know we will get the second dose to give to those who need a second dose. But for the meantime, we are not working with only one manufacturer. We've are now signed agreement with Sputnik V, and we are getting Sputnik V, I'm sure, from this weekend going into next week.
The president mentioned 300,000 doses.
Yes.
That was on Easter Thursday.
Yes. We are receiving it as soon as possible. Everything has been done to come in by air.
Okay. Have we done the tests here for the Sputnik V? Just asking.
Yes, what test? We do what we call the emergency use authorization.
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Done.
It's been done?
Yeah, it has been done. It has been done, yes.
Okay, all right.
And we are doing for other vaccines. We are doing for other vaccines. Any vaccine that we get the dose here, we do. In fact, we are working on Johnson & Johnson as well.
Okay. And for that, we are upgrading our cold chain facilities as well. Let me go to Nana Kofi Kwache. I'm sure he has a few things to say, and then I will come back to Dr. Nsia Asare and finish with Dr. Kwame Sapon-Asiedu. Nana Kofi, so if you've heard Dr. Nsia Asare, he is saying we are going to vaccinate as many people as possible. We are still working to get in the second dose. That is what leadership is there for. So they will find ways of getting the second dose. And they are also opened up to other kinds of vaccines. So Sputnik V is arriving, and they are working on getting the others in. That should satisfy the general public, should it not?
Well, I think that satisfies the question as to the sequencing and timelines of deliveries. But I think it's important for us to still keep it in the context of the global supply challenge. I think Dr. Nsia can correct me if I'm wrong, but when there was a roadshow of the vaccine plan, I believe we were expecting to get about 60 million doses of AstraZeneca from African Union, and we were planning on getting, I think, about 12 million from COVAX. We know the COVAX ones are delayed. That's what I think Dr. Nsia is referring to. But we also know that the African Union, for example, has decided that they are going to actually suspend plans on the AstraZeneca in the short term and go with Johnson & Johnson that, like you said, we'll be getting in Q3 2021. So I think where we are now is a situation where it's just important that the public has clarity on what to expect. I think a lot of the concern in the public has had to do with the fact that it was clear from global news that there was a big supply problem with AstraZeneca, but there wasn't a lot of clarity as to what exactly Ghana was going to be doing. I, for example, I'm just hearing Ghana's plan for the first time from Dr. Nsia Asare today with respect to this management of the supply challenges. So I think more frequent communication around that, and then also trying to give people in all the different population segments, population priority groups, a sense of when they can expect to be vaccinated. Because bear in mind, the plan as rolled out said we're going to be covering 20 million people by the end of October, and it's tough to see how that works with the current supply challenges. Not as a question of Ghana's efforts to go and buy them. That's not the conversation here. It's a question of just the fundamental question of the lack of knowledge sharing, the long queues that we are now entering, and the timing for production that's facing that challenge. And it's important, I think, for us to give the public clarity on that, so that there's not this assumption that vaccines now being everything is going to be clear. We still have a long way to go. People still have to be compliant, even as we build up to that level with hand washing, face masking, all the things that we're doing to minimize our risk, we still need to do. And we need to do that because we have to bear in mind that we've seen what variants can do in terms of vaccination plans and with even the concept of, in different parts of the world. And we know that there's a great deal of attention on making sure that, not only are you not importing new variants, but that you are keeping transmission low enough to reduce the risk of infection in the first place. But all those things still require us to bear in mind that because we have a long ramp to herd immunity, if you look at the numbers objectively, most African countries will not get there until 2022. And if we are looking at it in that context, it's important, I think, to communicate to people, timelines based on expected deliveries, so that we can to help with contextualizing the risk communication, that people don't, make the assumption that things are, like the vaccines are going to change things just today and tomorrow. Like Kwame said, we are seeing that as countries vaccinate more, mortality goes down, morbidity goes down, hospitalization goes down. those are all great things and very promising prospects for us. But we need to make sure that all the things that might hamper those benefits between now and those higher vaccination points are being done as well. And that involves, again, clear communication around that. I think on the question of the different vaccines that we have available, I mean, that's what most countries should do. We should be trying to target as many different vaccine candidates as possible. Kwame earlier referenced the fact that in some countries that do through clinical trials, and I think that's something that we should be very open to here. I don't know if Dr. Nsiah-Sarrey can confirm this, but there was reporting in Reuters on March 24th that Ghana was going to be participating along with UAE and Russia in a clinical trial of Sputnik Light, which is the monodose version of the Sputnik V vaccine. That was reported in a press conference by the head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, who are marketing the vaccine. And I haven't seen any coverage of it here or heard anything from the government here. But those are kind of things that I think we have to be open to doing those kind of trials here, and using that as a means of leverage to make sure that we are not just waiting, we're not just depending on having money in hand, but having other bargaining chips in play, including having hosted trials and the like, as Kwame referenced in examples of Chile and South Africa. I guess, are you there?
Hello.
Hey, Papa, no.
Hey, why is your friend at all?
I was at the bar with my friend Ato. We are betting the game and tensions were high. And Ato said, Charlie, we could lose. So then I said, same day. I won 15,000. Then Ato said, wait, we bet the same amount. How come I only got 9,000? Now I asked, yo, you didn't bet to Bet Planet?
Wait. He didn't bet to Bet Planet?
I didn't bet to Bet Planet. Then the bartender said, Ato, you suck, oh. Sharp, I go take all my money. Then Ato said, all your money? That was quick, oh. He's betting people say, come for yours tomorrow. We went the next day and they said, come for the rest tomorrow.
For the best odds, biggest wins, and fastest payouts, choose Bet Planet.
So Ato, where you there?
I still take you inside.
This advert has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Bet responsibly, not for persons below the age of 18.
Lawful wedded wife to having to hold from this day forward.
I do.
I knew it.
Drama saying a bit my share. I'm a winyaji. For HD Plus, who feel. My HD Plus, nyanyon papa palma with HD TV. For star 879 hash for subscribing. Not how we need to feel say see ya.
I think we left it a bit.
Welcome back to the big issue, and apologies for that abrupt end. We were experiencing a bit of a technical issue, but we are back. And Dr. Nsiah-Sarrey is still with us, Presidential Advisor on Health, and Kofi Kwache, Public Health Specialist, and Dr. Kwame Sapon-Esiedu, Pharmacist. So let me just wrap up this conversation with two quick questions to Dr. Nsiah-Sarrey. So Dr. Nsiah-Sarrey, Nana Kofi asked the question about our involvement with the Sputnik Light. I recall seeing that report as well. Is that happening?
We also have read it, but they haven't approached us yet. But as you are aware, the president has formed a vaccine manufacturing committee And these are some of the things that we are considering, right from clinical trials, the fill and finish of vaccine products, and also doing research and development. So these are all some of the things that we are involved in. But now that even the vaccination has started, doing clinical trials here will not be a problem. All what we have to do is to communicate to the general population very well that they are not using anybody as guinea pigs. At first, there was a lot of hesitancy. God being so good, with the help of everybody, including the media, and then the opinion leaders, that one has gone down. So as Dr. Esiedu said, we have to involve ourselves in such things, make sure that we take part in the clinical trials, we take part in other things, and then we do a lot of research and development. And then start with the low-hanging fruits like fill and finish, so that we become also vaccine production country. We have a large ECOWAS community to take care of, and even the sub-Saharan African community. So we are working on that, and as quickly as possible, we will come out of the blueprint. And I think at any time soon, the president will then tell Ghanaians what the plans are for vaccine production and development. We are not just doing vaccine production, but also development of vaccines, including clinical trials of any vaccines which comes into the country.
And finally, in the face of the, one would say, unfortunate disruptions in the supply and the production and supply based on what is happening in India and what is happening even within the EU right now, will we consider revising our 20 million vaccination target for October? Is that something we are going to still do?
No, the 20 million vaccination target is not for October, it's for the end of the year.
Are we sticking with it?
So we are sticking with it. As I said, that's what brings in leadership. His Excellency the President and everybody concerned is doing everything possible to get vaccines from anywhere we can get vaccines from. So we want to let everybody be rest assured, and those who have taken the first dose will get the second dose. With even the literature which is coming out, sometimes it's even better that it goes to about not the 8 weeks but 12 weeks, so that when the second dose is given, you get the maximum protection as it needed. And I think Dr. Esiedu has come out to tell everybody what is happening in the UK. We see we are getting very few cases. The cases are very low. We are also now going to do a study to find out the impact of even those who have taken the vaccination, how the impact is. You see, if you realize, we concentrated on what we call the hotspots, Greater Accra Metropolis and Greater Kumasi Metropolis. If you look at what the literature, what is coming out, the data coming out, we also realize that we are getting less daily cases from these two hotspots than before. And we are getting a few sporadic cases coming from outside the hotspots. That's the reason why we quickly also said, let's also open up and at least vaccinate those who are at a very high risk, the health professionals. They add those with underlying illness also to it. So we are going to do a study very soon to find out the impact after about 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks of those who are vaccinated, what has happened to the nation. And I'm very certain in my mind that the vaccination also has some impact, even though it's not scientifically done or proven, onto the case that we are seeing now, because we are still wearing the mask and washing our hands and sanitizing. But I don't think that alone is accounting for what we are seeing now. I'm very sure in my mind that the vaccination that we did from the 2nd of March is also accountable to whatever we are seeing now.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Dr. Nsiah, for your time this morning, Presidential Advisor on Health, giving us some updates. And thank you very much, Nakufi Kwache, Public Health Specialist, and Dr. Kwame Sapong Esiedu. He's a pharmacist and also a fellow with the CDD Ghana, providing some insight into the COVID vaccine situation in Ghana. I hope all your questions have been answered with regards to that. So the government is basically, to summarize this, the government is sticking with the 20 million Ghanaians vaccinated by the end of the year target, in spite of the supply challenges that are currently ongoing. Sputnik V is an option that Ghana is looking at. 300,000 doses expected to be delivered, he says, at least by the end of this weekend, likely maybe if we push it maybe next week, they'll start with that as well. The 900,000 doses are going to be pushed through to vaccinate as many people as possible, whilst the search for alternative supply chains also go on. So that is the situation regarding the COVID vaccination as well. And, to take a couple of messages that have come through on this matter. Eben from Winneba has an interesting one, and this it's for Dr. Nsiah-Asare. He said, on a lighter note, why should we thank Dr. Nsiah-Asare and his government for doing what we paid them handsomely to do? We should stop hoping and work at getting things to work. KD from listening to us from London says the AstraZeneca or any vaccine wasn't stretched to use because of any scientific reason. The main reason is that the vaccines were running out of stock and demand was less than supply. And on the Kaswa issues and matters arising, KD again says the days where movies like Sika Sunsum were being showed, all those movies ended with advice that those acts were not worth pursuing. Secondly, the movies never gave directions to where Sika Sunsum were for the youth and kids to go. We watched the movies with our responsible parents who added their advice promptly as soon as those movies ended. They didn't even allow us to watch certain movies or parts of the movie. Sometimes they would send you to go and fetch water for them. The water will be in a cup by then, not taken yet. They can send you for another cup just for you to miss some scenes in the movie. What we have today is totally different. Jones Adoboy says, good morning, Godfred. This Kaswa incident really mirrors the larger societal problems in our country. Modernization and the enactment of certain laws are partly the cause of our rotten society. If not checked, you'll be asked to move from your own house one day, is what he says. This one is from Babamu, who is very upset this morning. And Babamu, I'm not going to read the first part of your message. I'm sorry, but I can get that you're upset with the incident in Kaswa. So, yes. Ike Tokonu says, I like Dr. Dankabe's multi-agency approach and analysis. If rape and sexual crimes are the top crimes, it's easy to see the links to the high teenage pregnancy, parenting and runaway fathers problem, street children, low performance in even the poor public schools, lack of marketable skills from schools and colleges, unemployment, etc. A vicious cycle perpetuates itself and we are doomed if we don't stop it. Enforcement has to go to the roots. Punish perpetrators of sexual crimes, make runaway fathers pay till kids are 18 years old like they do in other countries. Too many people get away with murder in Ghana. Rigorous enforcement is needed. And other messages that have come through. Walanyo Omakwetia says, why are we still... okay, Walanyo. Okay, I don't really get your message. Xylix Dwayne says the media is part of the problem and our leaders need to create employment. This is Xylix Dwayne from London. He has sent this particular message. So that is where we'll end this particular part of the conversation. So it's the final stretch now, and we'll be talking energy. Last week we spent quite a bit of the show discussing energy, and this week as well we will enter that frame. And don't forget, I still have Franklin Kujan. I've been keeping Franklin on ice because of this particular segment of the show. I'll be doing this part as well with Kojo Poku. He's Executive Director, Institute of Energy Policies and Research. Adam Mutawakilu will also join us. He's the former ranking member of the Energy Committee in Parliament. Like I said, Franklin is also here. And we'll also try and get Kojo Yauche, who was with us last week as well, to engage with the conversation. And so last week we discussed the power sector and what the problems were. This week we've seen the energy minister moving around, inspecting. In fact, he went on a media tour just to try and perhaps boost public confidence. He did a bit of a show and tell with what was happening in the sector. So he took journalists around to show them the maintenance work that was going with Greatco ECG. And ECG also has come forward to say that they did a press briefing or a media engagement, as one would call it, and they have made a strong case for a tariff increment. We put together a small report, so Kujajiman did that. We'll hear that, and when we return, we'll have this conversation.
The forum brought together stakeholders in the energy sector to deliberate on how to resolve the current power challenges. Energy Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh hinted that Ghanaians should expect intermittent power outages in the month of May. He explained that this was due to an ongoing upgrade at the Kasoa and Pokwase substations.
Just 2 days ago, I received a letter from MIDA, who are helping upgrade the Pokwase or construct the Pokwase and the Kasoa substations just 2 days ago, informing me that the progress on the substations is such that in the month of May, around my birthday, there's going to be, I wonder what a birthday present I'm going to get. There will be systematic power outages. So we have invited both ECG and GridCo. And in the light of that, let's sit and plan and communicate the people who will be affected way before it happens. That is a plant system upgrade that is leading to power outages that we need to communicate. Just suppose that what happened last Saturday, when either because of congestion or something, a conductor cracked, a line got severed, and there was total blackout.
The Ghana Grid Company Limited was hopeful that the ongoing upgrade would be completed by June 2021.
Pokwase is likely by June will be completed, but Kasoa will be at a later date. But once Pokwase is completed, it relieves us so much, and then later when Kasoa comes, it adds to the other level. But when I must promise that when Pokwase comes, we will see a big relief in the system. The plan is that when Pokwase is commissioned, ECG will take part of the load that is taken from our Achimota substation, from our Trasaku Akrai substation, from Mobile. ECG is going to collect power from this substation and dump it on Pokwase. So all the overloads in this substation will then vanish.
The Electricity Company of Ghana says it needs a tariff increment to support its operational activities. Currently, Lifeline consumers who are classified as poor and low-income earners pay 16 cedis for power consumed. The managing director of the company, Kwame Ajimambudu, stated that their request, if granted, would enable them operate more efficiently.
You upgrade, you need money to do it, so it will be prudent to say yes, that if we get the increase, we will love it. That one select up to PRC, because no matter what we will propose, it's work in progress. It's work in progress.
The Africa Center for Energy Policy challenged the Electricity Company of Ghana to come clear on its demands.
We also had an indication that these companies may be requesting for an increment in the tariff, and ECG was upfront with that they need more money to be able to distribute power effectively. So we'll be engaging subsequently to see how much they need and whether those demands are justified and whether improvement in their own systems could rather be the solution rather than an increment in the tariff. So there are many other engagements that we need to have in the coming months to ensure that we deliver power to the consumer.
Yeah, so that was Benjamin Boache ending that report by Kojo Ajiman, taking a look into basically the current state of the energy sector. And it has a lot of people worried. If you go on social media, my Facebook page and my Twitter account, constantly I'm being accused of ignoring what is Dumso and other names that have been given to it, and comparing political timelines and whatnot. But that is what we have Kojo Poku here for.
Oh, really? You are avoiding it, but that's what I'm here for? Nah, I don't think so. But hey, we'll
try and make sense of it.
Yes, we'll try and make sense of it. We'll take a bite.
He's the executive director of the Institute of Energy Policies and Research. So, Kojo, let me ask the question. Okay. Let me mix things up, and then I'll ask you, then I'll talk to Franklin and Adam Mutawakilu.
No problem.
As well. The ordinary man says, look, you say upgrade, you say this. planned upgrade. But what kind of plan is this? You have all these things happening at the same time. Why couldn't you stagger this over a period of time? What took you so long? And by that I mean ECG, GridCo, or the Ministry of Energy. Why is all this happening at the same time? And you are suddenly telling us it's a planned systemic upgrade.
Well, it's unfortunate. You know, anytime we have our lights going off the rate at which it goes off, it's unfortunate. And the fundamental issue is planning. As a nation, we don't plan well. What led us to the 2012-2016 issue was planning. Then afterwards, we went through this thing for a good 4 or 5 years to get it resolved. And everybody went to sleep and thought, look, the system would solve its own problems. But systems don't solve their problems. If you don't change the system will tell you to change the system. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In the Europe and the Western and Americas, we can go there, see a transformer, it's home use, say, hey, transformer, it looks new. We buy it and bring it here, and it probably work for another 10 years. But the white person have changed it. Because to the white person, plan is important. If a transformer is built for 10 years, exactly 10 years, he's made plans and he replaces it. But he replaces it with forecasts, because maybe it was a 110 kV transformer, but he sees population growth. So he'll change it to a 330 kV transformer. So there's systematic planning in elsewhere. In Ghana, we don't have that. Look, if you go to GridCo and ECG, they're engineers. That's how they are trained. They plan. But they do the nice writing and planning and give it to the decision makers to help them implement that plan. That doesn't happen. It's unfortunate that we have 4 major projects going on around the country, and it seemed to the ordinary Ghanaian that they've all come around the same time. Mm-hmm. Some started, there was a halt. The Akosombo Achimota, which is the one that was also sometimes referred to as the Tema Accra transmission line, has been ongoing with the Kintampo Kumasi 330 kV line for about since 2015, because the French Development Agency gave some money to GridCo to undertake those works. But I think along the line, there was a bit of a challenge between GridCo and the agency, and they wanted a government guarantee to back the transaction. And I think that also took some time. You see, 2020 happened, COVID, and I think a lot of things got shut down and all focuses went on COVID. So as a result, we've practically lost a year. Mm-hmm. So if things that are happening in 2018, 2019, you have to fast forward to 2021. So a whole year, not much happened. So all these projects that are now being picked up again, it's seen as they are all happening at the same time. But they are not. They all started at various times with their own various challenges. So what we have now, we have the MIDA-funded project, which is the Kasoa and Pokuase project, which is basically monies that were given to us through the Compact 2 to upgrade our bulk supply points and which was substation. So the Pokuase is a substation, Kasoa is a bulk supply point, like you heard the gentleman in their presentation talked about. Those are ongoing, and the contractors are saying that, look, we are almost finished, we need to do connectivity. So at the point of connectivity, we need to switch off electricity in the environs, community in the environs. And that is what the minister talked of, where in May, they have informed him that they need a timetable to basically be able to do that. Because if you're going to shut down electricity of about, let's say, 110 megawatts or 100 megawatts, you can't just let one community carry that burden. So there's going to be a load shedding timetable where most communities within the Malam to Kasoa area will be informed that within this period, your lights will go off and it will come back at this time. So technically, it's just a bit of mishap, unfortunate situation that has brought all these projects around the same time uncompleted. And as a result, because we have not planned well or systematic planning, we've gotten to the point where we don't switch off the machine switch off itself.
Franklin, you've heard you've heard Kojo Poku. Do you agree? Okay, so we'll try and get Franklin. Adam Mutawakilu, former ranking member of the Energy Committee on Parliament, is also with us. Good morning, Alus.
Good morning, my brother.
How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm doing good.
I can see you are enjoying post-parliament.
He looks much better.
Stress is taking off for now.
Yes. Kojo Poku says you look...
Adjusting to my new lifestyle.
Kojo Poku says you look very, very happy.
Yeah, stress taking off at least. Yeah, okay. But economically, we all know the hardship that we are going through now.
All right, I'm sure you've been following what's been happening in the energy sector, but this week has been particularly informative because the energy minister has been engaging and trying to communicate and has made mention of this upcoming intermittent or planned power outage that we will have in parts of the country in May to make up, to allow for these works that are ongoing. But the same question I asked Kojo is the same question I'll ask you. For the ordinary Ghanaian, they are saying, what is planned when everything seems to have happened at the same time? For a lot of Ghanaians, they feel this is just garnishing on a much larger problem. Even though the government or the ministry makes it look like, look, after May or by August, this will all be over, so just bear with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. This, what we are going through today is no surprise to me. I knew one day we'll come to this point. And I said we elected the government since 2017, but the government never paid the minority in parliament. The workers of GRICO came out and demonstrated and made it clear that if we don't take time, we'll have a situation like this. The government rubbish it, and today we are in that situation. Now, let me go back. My brother explained certain things, and let me go back. For example, in 2015, the government of Ghana, under the NDC and President Mama, signed an agreement with Alliance Française Développement for $171 million for the upgrade of the transmission line from Kumasi to Bolga, so that at least we can export, apart from our own consumption, we can also export power to Burkina Faso. This agreement was pivoted on the financial position of GRICO. So 2016, the financial position of GRICO was good because it made a profit of about $69 million and therefore had positive ratios. So the agency continued to fund the project. Then in 2017, it made a loss of 31 million Ghana cedis. And therefore, there was a red flag by Alliance Française Développement because the foundation on which the loan was given had been breached, and therefore, subsequently, they suspended disbursement. So the project that was supposed to finish in 2018 had to be delayed, and it is ongoing as we speak. So that is almost 5 years today. In 2018, the government has to take over the liabilities of ECD in respect to this project, and therefore came for what we call the Government Consent and Support Agreement, which we approved. Then the agency was now comfortable to release funds. So if GRICO financials were okay, this project should have completed somewhere 2018. There are other ongoing projects GRICO couldn't fund because their financial position was not that solid. They couldn't even pay what we call project affected persons compensation to them. And therefore, there have been a delay. So most of what we are going through, we knew that if things were done right earlier, we wouldn't be in such a situation. Apart from the financial challenges in terms of GRICO itself, ECG is not also able to release funds as required to GRICO to be able to go on with what we call regular maintenances. So apart from upgrading, they must also continue to do regular maintenance, including clearing of grasses under the pylons and the pathway when trees branches extend to the right of way. To the right of way. Every year they are supposed to make sure that these branches are trimmed, under the pylons are cleared, so that in case of any rainstorm, there will not be anything to disrupt the transmission lines. But because they didn't have the resources, they couldn't undertake these regular maintenances and only resorted to what we call critical maintenances. The other thing as a result is the morale of crypto workers. Because the resources were not there, they couldn't even motivate their staff to make sure that they work very well. And you all realize, as we speak, many of the experienced people who have gone on retirement, they cannot even retain them on contract for a while. And those people, when they left, they couldn't replace them with qualified staff to continue. Apart from that, a number of them are resigning because of the situation we are facing now. I'm aware this month, almost 4 of their technical staff have decided to resign. And all this will go a long way to affect the maintenance of this transmission infrastructure. So what we are going through is not something that we didn't expect. It's not something government didn't know it will happen, but they didn't take it quite serious, and we are in this situation. All other things being equal, upgrading shouldn't lead to load shedding timetable. No. The engineers know at what point in time this should be done. In terms of substation, we've constructed a number of substations, a number of bulk supply points, a number of upgrade of transmission lines, but we didn't have any timetable for load shedding. No. Why now? It is because most of the projects should have been completed, say, 2018, 2019, and they couldn't be completed, and now we have to find a way of doing cash projects, work on them, and that is where we are today.
Franklin, are you with us?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much for your patience today. I apologize, but I needed you.
Not to apologize. I mean, it was good conversation and good education as well. I enjoyed every bit of it.
Yes. So I'm listening to Gallus and Kojo Poku, and would it be fair to say this is an inconvenience and not a crisis?
Well, as long as politicians are known to manufacture crisis, I'm not too sure we can say this is an inconvenience. I mean, this double speak, really, that has been going on is quite nauseating. I mean, now, when this whole thing began, we were told it was something else. It was just a matter of weeks. In fact, we were told just a week or 2. Now I'm hearing discordant voices. The next I hear is that, well, this planned maintenance is going to take place until September. And then I'm asking myself, what next? I mean, beyond the political cliche of describing it as doomsday, it is just one of those conversations that it's not difficult to have. And I think that instead of trying to politicize the matter, we should have been dealing with this head on, as Kojo Poku has said. I mean, look, we knew this was long in coming. If you were a serious entity as a government that came to power after piling a number of insults and opprobrium against the previous administration, and yes, we were all complicit in it because it was terrible. It was affecting businesses and all sorts of things. I remember a company that wanted to set up a vaccine manufacturing company in Ghana came to us and said because of the power situation, they were relocating it to South Africa. And so we suffered for it. Now, it would have meant that once you're a serious entity, before you came to power, you must have had all of this at your fingertips. To be hearing that, well, look at us, we are more beautiful than the other party because, well, this time it's called intermittent power. But I don't know what name we give it again. Somebody has called it Pro Max Doomsaw or something like that. There are all kinds of definitions being given. It's nauseating and irritating to hear. Look, we've just had COVID, and it's already impacting businesses. People are still losing jobs. The last you want is for another catastrophic event, which obviously is not necessarily, should I call it, natural, because this is man-made, to take us back to the days where we were suffering from a lot of economic malaise. So please, my clarion call to the managers of the economy, and I want to see the president tweet about this matter as well, and the vice president, my good friend, tweet about these things. At least it's comforting to hear from them, because these were the harbingers of, opprobrium against John Mahama. And as I said, we were all compliant, pliant in all that diatribe. So beyond just making it a political face-saving matter, at least the first point of call is to say, look, we didn't know what we were talking about, because if we knew, we wouldn't be in this situation.
But why is that necessary?
Yeah. It's necessary because it heals. Somehow it heals. I mean, look, it may be, it may not necessarily heal us out of our doom. So, look, I think it's proper to do these things. Rather than sit around and still rub it in our faces and say we are better managers because, well, ours isn't as catastrophic as the other. I mean, if you knew, you wouldn't be saying that at all. So for me, we are just repeating ourselves again. We know the problems. We should have dealt with them. If there was a proper master plan, we wouldn't be here, and so let's deal with it. I think these are matters that are very significant to the development of the country, and we must be seen to be serious about it. But at least it's also important to say that, look, we are sorry that some of the challenges we saw, or which we criticized, we haven't done proper at managing them at all. And at least that also serves the political, score. I mean, that's just a political commentary, by the way. But I think we need to be serious about this matter.
But you do make a point, though, because it does look like the government has been at pains to say this is not doomso. This is not what you experienced. This is us trying to fix a small problem, but give us a bit of time and we will fix it. And if you listen to Matthew Poku Prempeh, he seems to always go out of his way to say, this is not what you faced previously. This is not what we criticized. So just bear with us and we will get out of the way. But there isn't a lot of trust in the system, is there? And Kojo Poku, you can also come in as and when you want to on this particular issue. Franklin, though.
Well, it's just not a question of trust. It's a question of proper planning. You see, the moment you start moving from the high pedestal that this was not what we criticized, it only means that once you've been in power, you have all these mapped out properly. Even if it is routine maintenance, we should be hearing about it. You see, we shouldn't be upstaged. That's all I'm trying to say. For the excuses to be made. And the excuses are discordant. Look, 2 weeks ago, the ECG boss in Kumasi was saying, well, the GRIDCO says the lines are overworked or what's the word they used? Overloaded.
Yes.
And so this thing ought to be done. And GRIDCO also says, oh, don't worry, well, we'll get out of it. Then they ask for a timetable. They say, well, we can't give a timetable because these are our temporary measures. The next thing you hear is that, oh, we'll work out till May. Then the next news item you see on City FM is that, oh, these things will be with us till September. It doesn't get prettier. So let's face the fact. Let's deal with it once and for all. I don't like this political point scoring, but I think that's where it starts from. And all I'm saying is that beyond the issues of trust, if we were capable, when ESLA was put in place to solve some of these matters, you wouldn't be using ESLA to do other things as well. And I think it's proper that we ask for some sort of, apology and then going forward, a proper plan to deal with this sector. Look at the energy space. Almost all the things that we said were nauseating about the Mahama administration, significant. Almost 70% to 80% of them are still with us, really. and we are negotiating and extending the terms and deals we blamed. And we didn't like it. So we can't like it any better now. That's all I'm trying to say. But like if everything we do in this part of our world, well, we politicize it and then go to sleep. By the way, all I'm saying is that we've had clear and present dangers from the COVID. The last thing you want is another dislodgement of the economy through, man-made, problems with our past situation. We should deal with it, really.
All right.
Well, let me give a bit of clarity to what my brother just said, which is the timelines. There seems to, on the surface of it, look like everybody talks about different timelines, but there are different projects. So not the same timelines for the same project. So not for different timelines for the same projects. When you talk of the Kumasi Kintampo, GRICO talks about August to finish Kumasi Kintampo. Then there is the Volta Achimota, which is the same project which is they refer to as Tema Accra. Okay? That project is to be stringed in September. Then the ECG boss goes on to say December. The December for ECG is that after the August deadline given by GRICO, the 130 lines is finished. ECG will have to go in and make sure that everything that needs to be done at their end would also be done, so that we do not have an issue of, oh, you said August, but now there's another set of conversation that something needs to be done by ECG. So ECG will go in and do their work, and they are given August. Now, the issue of time...
Can I ask a question, Kojo?
Yes, go ahead.
All these timelines that are given, if we know them in advance, isn't it proper to just give us some indication that, look, when your lights keep flickering, maybe this is the reason, and that between this period, your lights will be going on and off like disco lights. So protect your gadgets. I think it's proper. So irrespective of whatever projects are happening at different points in time, I think it's only proper that we get a sense of some timing so that it helps all of us.
Yeah, but Franklin, you would understand that these are not planned flickering or planned trips. So the system have a mind of its own. It trips to protect itself. When in the evenings there is overload in the system will shut down on its own. You see, these transformers and substations shut down even when there's a rain and there's a light.
If there's an overload and which triggers a flicker, then it means you know very well that there'll be overloads in the evening. So why don't you schedule and ensure that some people are off?
Yeah, but frankly, you're also aware that not every evening has the same peaks. There are some times when it's warm and the peaks are high. The times that it's rain is cold, the peaks are low. So there is no, let's all agree that, look.
So our electricity is subject to the vagaries of the weather. That's what you're suggesting?
No, it's subject to demand on the system. So if there's higher demand...
What it means is that if there's a demand and the demand is perceived, I'm sure, Kojo, you do all this analysis all the time, so you're able to calculate the demand and the peak hours and all of that. All I'm saying is that it cannot just be explained away that because we cannot determine the load or the demand and the peak, we should just sit and allow the things to go on just like that. At least you plan and say, you know the peak hours, so you take this load off, while you still fix the integrity of the system. I mean, I suspect it's a fair ask.
Well, I agree. Ben Boachi from ASAP gave a similar contribution during the forum. He said that, look, you know that is the overload, okay, that causes the trip. So instead of overloading it, why don't you just say that, okay, if I am to put, let's say, 3,000 megawatts on the system, it will trip. Why not say that, okay, I'm going to put 2,900, and then the balance of what you can put on there, give a timetable to share that load among people. That is also a conversation that can be had.
Actually, that should be the conversation, because Kojopoku, when you buy an extended board which has about 5 or so slots to put in your gadgets, you must be reading the directional, the direction of use. Otherwise, if you put a gadget that obviously is more powerful than your your extension board, like we call it, would take, it will blow in your face and probably get you hurt as well. If we can all do this at the minimum level, I don't know why the people we are paying cannot just say that, look, at this point in time, this is overloading us. You see, that is the problem, because now they are now trying to say that, oh, well, we can't do anything about it because we don't know how this will go. Why are we paying engineers to think for us anyway? Because as I said, this is what they should be doing.
Well, on my submission, I honestly don't think that a timetable, because it's been explained by ECG during, again, when we had the forum, was that between 7 o'clock and 11 o'clock in the evening in Kumasi, the people in the Kumasi and the environment should expect some outages, which was said, okay? Now, the
They've
issue...
been experiencing it for some time now.
Well, then you see, there's a difference. The difference is that in the past, we've had these problems and nobody was forthcoming with information. Some of us were very frustrated.
Okay.
And we've said to ourselves that, look, if we're going to have such challenges again, at least let one thing change. Let there be information.
Yeah.
And this time around, there is information. Nobody can say that Gridco, ECG, the ministry had not been forthcoming with information. Then when the information is put out there, people are like, then we don't care about the information. All we want...
Franklin, let him flow a bit. Let him flow. I'll let you come back, Franklin.
All that somebody says is that I don't care about the information. All I want is my light on. When doing the program, there was a gentleman that came from Consumer, one of the consumer agency processing civil society organizations, and said that, look, I don't care about what you tell me, the graphs and the diagram. All I want is my lights on. We know that. We all share that view. But for me, what I seem to get is that information is key. Because if I sit at home and my light goes off, I'll pick a phone and dial the number I've been given that, look, ECG customer service. They will tell me that, okay, Mr. Poku, we know your light is off. It's down the road. A line went off. A line got broken, or a car went into the pole. There are engineers there. In 2 hours, it will be fixed. I'm calm because I know that somebody is aware of it. In 2 hours, it will be fixed. So these explanation and this information, which is forthcoming from ECG and Gridco, which is different from the past where we were in the dark of any information. For me, I think it's an improvement. Franklin and I share the same vigor. We want Ghana first and we want the system to work. But then I think we should also be appreciative of the fact that we are being given information to digest.
Okay. Yaoche is with us. Kojo Yaoche, he was with us last week, and this week he has joined us, policy lead at ASEP. Yaoche, morning.
Good morning, Alfred.
Yes, you are back with us on a Saturday morning. And this week you have more information to work with. Are you satisfied with what you have heard from the Energy Minister on his meet and greet with players in the energy sector this week?
Well, I mean, it's been a mixture of things that we want to know, things that we already know, and an evasion of things that should be said. So it's more of a mixture, and I've been following the conversation. I think Honorable Mutawakibu and Franklin puts more of the issues in perspective. And with regards to issues like the timeline for the outages, I think I agree when Franklin says that we should be able to, even when we say, okay, the load comes at peak in the evenings, we should be able to tell that this area, this is where we get over demand on the system, and be able to shed that load even before it gets to overload the system, right? And that is what would, for now, protect the integrity of the system whilst we wait for the new expansion projects to come on board. I think we are still struggling trying to delink the expansion projects coming on board, which will cause some temporal outages whilst we get them connected to the system, and the existing problem of overloading in the system. There is already a problem that exists. If it were true that it is the expansion that is causing the outages that we are currently facing, we wouldn't be told that in coming May, there will be major outages, or maybe the problem will be solved when maybe Kaswa comes on in September, for example. I think we have to be clear in our mind that there are two separate issues that we are facing here. And these two separate issues have different solutions to them. The oncoming projects are planned, and they have when they will join the grid. That we will know when the time is due. Currently, we have outages that needs to have a plan for we the consumers. For we the consumers to be able to plan how we go about our activities. You can't tell me that, so expect power to go off between 7 and 11, but I can't tell you when. That is not enough. If you know that our current consumption of maybe 3,200 is going to overload your transmission system and you need to keep it at 2,800, keep all of us consuming at 2,800 every day, and tell me that today, this evening, you get it, but tomorrow evening, you are not going to get it. Let's do it like that and stop. We are just creating the system where we don't want to accept that we have a problem. Where we don't want to accept that, yes, so you see, they keep explaining the issue away. And I think the power planners themselves are not helping themselves. Because in the end, we will keep mentioning their name, RIDCO, ECG, we'll keep coming back to them. So we need to really, really understand the problem that we have and the solutions that we propose to those problems.
Honorable Mutawakil, I'm sure you've heard Kwejo Franklin and now Yao Che.
I agree, Frank, with Kwejo. There are two main issues. Those of the major projects that are being carried out and what we are facing through transformers and what have you. And as I indicated, those ones is because we have not been able to do regular repairs and maintenances over the period. Now, anyone who tells me that GRIDCO do not know when the expected demand of a day is not telling us the truth. Every evening, GRIDCO will come with a scheduled demand forecast for the next day. But rarely will it go beyond the expected demand forecast. They will come with a peak demand, then the reserve margin for each and every hour of the day. So we know. And as we know, if we know how much the transmission infrastructure can take, we can plan where we should put off when it gets to that limit. And therefore, we come with a timetable. In dealing with the past, whether it's low, the past, it was agreed that we are doing so, we had generational problem. To resolve it, this is the timetable. While we add emergency plans to increase the generation, install capacity. This time, we have challenges. You say, no, they are just short term. Before you realize it's going to medium and long term. But you do not have timetable for customers to follow. That is a big problem. With the major infrastructure, let me tell you, the Kintampo Kumasi transmission line upgrades, irrespective of how it is going on, those places will still have light. Let me explain why. Gone are the days when GRIDCO used to have many of their lines being radial lines. This time they have what we call ring lines. Now, if at Kintampo there is an upgrade, power can be rerouted through Bole, Wa, Tumu, Bolga, and Tamale, and back to Kintampo. So the work can be going on because it's a ring. So if it is not able to pass through Kumasi, Techima, Kintampo, it can pass through the other way. And most of the transmission lines are like that. So the major projects doesn't need what they are talking about this timetable. It is because GRIDCO has not been able to maintain this infrastructure for a long time. And if they were able to do repair maintenances, most of this, what we're going through today, wouldn't have been going through it. And it is high time we come with a timetable for customers to be able to follow, to determine when they will get lights off and when they will get lights on.
All right, then. So thank you, Honorable Mutawakil. I just want to take a couple of messages, and then we'll take a break, and then we will wrap up with the ECG request for tariff. In fact, let me just start with that, and then do a reverse. So, Coach, I'll start that with you.
Right.
A lot of people are not happy with this one? Even though people have said we should expect it.
Look, ECG always requests. It's nothing new. ECG going to PLC and requesting for tariff upward adjustment. They do it all the time. Whether PLC will grant their request is a different conversation. In 2017, ECG went to PLC for a request for upward adjustment. PLC looked at the situation on the ground, looked at the price and reduction of gas prices, the relocation of car power and all those mitigation factors, and said, no, we are going to give a reduction. So PLC gave a reduction. In 2019, ECG went again and asked for an upward adjustment. They always do. Anytime there's a review, the utility companies always go and ask for upward adjustment for them to tell you that this is what I need to run my business. But PLC looks at their management accounts, look at the benchmarks, the KPIs they gave them, and say, no, I don't think you've met these KPIs. I don't think you've been disciplined enough in terms of your budget, in terms of your expenditure, so I will not give you the increase that you're asking for.
Does public input matter?
Yes,
to the PLC?
You can write to PLC if you think you have information that will help them determine otherwise or nay or yay. You can write to PLC. But bear in mind, PLC commission is made up of the unions, is made up of individuals who are on there to represent you and I. But anybody is welcome to write to the chairman of PLC if you think you have some technical information that will help determine the issue. But the fact that ECG has written or presented to PLC that they want an increment, does not necessarily mean there's going to be an increment.
But there are those who say, the experts in the game, and you are one of those, say they do deserve it. They should get it. But the general public also says we are not interested.
Nobody have said they deserve it. Please, let's not put in perspective. There are two conversations. One, ECG needs investment. Okay? Let's separate ECG's investment for infrastructure from efficiency and management operations. Efficiency and management operations, you don't need money for that. It's just people trying to do their work and somebody sticking with the proverbial whip to make sure the right thing is done. Then there is the infrastructure, which they need to invest. If they are making loss year on year and they are not making money, then the 100% equity shareholder, who is government, is supposed to provide the liquidity for them to do these investments. ECG carries out a losses of 26 to 30%, making up commercial and technical losses. How do we get over this? Because the price me and you pay for tariffs is factored in the losses. So if we're able to reduce the technical losses on their system to, let's say, 8% from where it is now, and they're able to collect all the revenues that they are supposed to collect by so reducing the commercial losses, it means that ECG will have more money. Because the losses are low, me and you have to pay less. So there's one school of thought that says, okay, let's give them a bit more now so that they can make the needed infrastructure. They can buy the needed infrastructure, make the needed investment to upgrade the system and reduce the technical losses. In 2 years, when that technical losses is reduced, it will come to our benefit so the tariffs can be reviewed lower. That's one school of thought. Then another school of thought that says, no, the government, who is the shareholder, should find the money and invest the money in there if they don't want to do the private sector participation, which they cancelled. Okay? So either go and find the private sector to bring the money for Gridco or for ECG through PSP, or find the money for them. My brother, whichever way, me and you, we are government. Whether we pay it through tariffs or we pay it through taxes to government for government to put it in there, we are going to pay. So let's not be aloof about the conversation. It's a national asset. If the private sector is not brought in to bring its money, but bear in mind, what is the private sector coming for? Private sector needs returns on investment. So if he is going to bring $600 million, he's going to make sure that he would only do $600 million investment if he can get returns on investment, which means what? Me and you paying the realistic prices for electricity. So there is no losing the argument. So it's either we hold the bull by the horn or find a way to just put a rope around his neck.
The concern, I guess, will be the timing. We are having inconsistent power supply.
My brother, it's the same timing which has brought us.
And you are coming to ask me for money.
Let me tell you something. It's the same timing that has brought us here. I can tell you that some of these work that we are talking about were supposed to have been carried out last year. But it was supposed to be carried out too close to the election. Now somebody think, hey, timing. we keep using timing and trying to put politics in everything we do, then we'll never get it done. So whether it's timing or not, I'm saying that we don't necessarily have to increase the tariffs. And that job is for PURC. They will do justice to it. I'm reliably informed that PURC is going to look at all the mitigation factors and make a decision whether the tariffs will go up or stay as it is. We don't know. Okay? But what is the solution? ECG needs investment. Are we the Ghanaians going to give it as tariffs, or are we Ghanaians going to give it as taxes? The decision there is very clear. Whichever way, Ghanaians, me and you, who is government, has to pay.
All right, then we'll take a break. When we return, we'll hear from Franklin Adamutawakilu and Yaoche on ECG's request to the PURC this week, and then we'll call it a show.
Lawful wedded wife to have him to hold from this day forward.
I do.
Esther!
I knew it.
Drama saying a bit smashe. I'm a winyaji. For HD Plus, who no feel. My HD Plus, nyanyonko papa palma with HD TV. For star 879 hash for subscribe it. Not chow need to feel say see ya.
Hey, Papa, no.
Hey, why is your friend at all?
I was at the bar with my friend Ato. We are betting the game and tensions were high. And Ato said, Charlie, we could lose. So then I said, same day. I won 15,000. Then Ato said, wait, we bet the same amount. How come I only got 9,000? Now I asked, yo, you didn't bet to Bet Planet?
Wait. He didn't bet to Bet Planet?
I didn't bet to Bet Planet. Then the bartender said, Ato, you suck, oh. Sharp, I go take all my money. Then Ato said, all your money? That was quick, oh. He's betting people say, come for yours tomorrow. We went the next day and they said, come for the rest tomorrow.
For the best odds, biggest wins, and fastest payouts, choose Bet Planet.
So Ato, where you dey?
I still take you inside.
This advert has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Bet responsibly, not for persons below the age of 18.
Get more out of your GoTV experience by knowing more, thanks to our new enhanced decoder notifications. Our helpful icons will put valuable information at your fingertips when watching your favorite shows. Know how many viewing days you have left before your next account payment is due, so you never get disconnected. Be informed about special offers and rewards coming your way. Never miss great new content, campaigns, and events ever again. And celebrate your milestones as part of the GoTV family. To access these icons when they pop up on your screen, just press the OK button on your remote and select messages from the menu bar. Use the arrow keys to scroll through the different notifications. When done reading a message, you can press the red button to delete it from your inbox. For payment notifications, you have the option to opt out, which means you won't see the notification again until your next billing cycle. More information, more control with GoTV's enhanced decoder notifications.
Welcome back to the big issue discussing the energy sector and this week's push by the energy minister to provide some sort of clarity, and also ECG demanding a tariff increment. Yaoche, last week when we spoke, you already had spoken about the need for some kind of revision in tariffs and whatnot. ECG have made their case to the PURC. Like what Joe has rightly explained, it is PURC that will make a decision. So you are not really surprised when you heard the ECG boss say, this is what we are asking for?
I mean, there are components of the adjustments that have to be made, like the gas prices that we are not being able to fully recover. But then ECG will have to justify to PURC why they should have an increment. So while we admit that there are some components, because the adjustment is done based on a lot of component. The tariff is arrived at a lot of components. Some components, like I mentioned, the gas prices have to be fully reflected. But if you look at the fact that ECG has consistently failed to meet the benchmark targets for losses in the system, that currently we are doing around 26% of power, that is costing us about 15 pesos on every kilowatt of power that you consume, then you also have to question them, really, about why should we give you this if you consistently fail to meet those benchmarks. And it's as a result of the management inefficiencies that we are experiencing in the system. I heard when we were at the program, the boss of ECG was saying that in relation to matters of illegal connection, that the ministry is putting together a task force to deal with some of these issues. And I was surprised to hear the ECG boss say that. Why should the boss of ECG be waiting on the Ministry of Energy to deal with issues of illegal connection, power theft in the system? And those alone are causing about 16% of the losses that we are experiencing in the power supply system. So there has to be a clear justification for the increments. The increments is usually not wholesale. It's a composite price that is arrived. But ECG and even the PURC themselves, the last tariff review in 2017, the benchmark for losses in the system was 21%. But in 2019, when they were doing the reviews, they increased it to 22.6%. So PURC will also have to question themselves whether they should continue encouraging inefficiencies in the system, or they have to police the utilities to make sure that these inefficiencies come down. Because effectively, if you ask for an increment and you are not able to collect how much if we sell power to you and we are losing about 30% of the power that you get to sell, then we shouldn't be made to increase the tariff for you only for us to end up paying for people who consume the power without paying for it. So there has to be a clear justification by ECG and NEDCO and all the utilities on why the increment should come.
All right, thank you. And Galus, your thoughts on this quickly so that we wrap this up?
Yeah, thank you very much. If you look at the history, there's always been the request for increments. And as my brother indicated in 2017, there was a reduction in tariff. We are paying for it today. You know, in the power industry, once you know the peak demand, you are supposed to calculate about 20% of that as a reserve margin. And provision must be made for that and put in the tariff. In 2017, what the government simply did was first to take off that reserve margin and call it excess capacity and take it off. Yes, tariff drop, but we are paying for that, this budget, where 20 pesos is imposed on a liter of petroleum product. Yeah, gasoline and gas oil. So definitely you cannot run away from it if you want to run a better system. Now, whereby the second issue is why they are not able to do a lot of work in reducing the losses, both technical and commercial. If they are not able to reduce it and only come that increase tariffs, they increase it, then the leakage increase. At the end of the day, we come back to square one. And that is why every justification for ECG to increase tariff is to do investment. And at the end of the day, they will come with that reason. Until we make them to account and make sure that they put proper policies and action in place to ensure that we reduce these losses. I'm telling you, going forward, with an increment in tariff, we'll come back to square one. Let me tell you, today, there have been so many taxes that have been imposed on ordinary Ghanaians. Definitely, the income is stretched. If you therefore impose high tariffs, electricity tariff, the consumer will always find a way out. So I can foresee more illegal connections trying to avoid it. Yes, because if I earn 100 cedis, already there will be so many taxes on that 100 cedis. Now electricity tariff goes high. The 100 cedi cannot satisfy all. I will find a way out. So that is why I insist. ECG must first of all let us know the plans they have put in place to ensure that people do not engage in that. If they are not able to engage in that, they reduce it drastically. It's an income to ECG. And therefore, there is no need for any tariff increment. But once we allow them to go without telling us what measures they can put in place to reduce it drastically, then we only see next year will come and then these losses would have increased to probably 35, 40. Because people will find a way of avoiding, knowing very well that ECG will not be able to detect that. Then the last one is when the minister was addressing the CSO, he did not admit to the fact that these problems we're going through as a result of financial challenges. He said there is money. Now, if a minister of energy said there is money, it is not financial challenges, what is the justification for EC asking for increment in tariffs?
Thank you very much, Adams Mutawakilu, for those thoughts. Franklin, wrap up for me.
I've just been wondering why we think PURC will do an effective job against another government entity at all, except being spineless in that regard. So, look, until we have a full decentralized private sector powered, involvement in the whole distribution and everything that we want to, a proper private sector, not chronic capitalist ones, all these problems will continue. I don't see PRC being effective at all. Anytime you ask PRC, why haven't you sanctioned ABCD, they point back at the appointing authority. And appointing authorities are still with the ECG. So nothing changes, really.
Kwejo says he has a question for you.
Franklin, are you a socialist?
No, Franklin is the greatest libertarian you have. He's a believer in the market, man.
Franklin, are you a socialist? You seem to not have any faith in the system.
I'm a capitalist at heart, but I'm a capitalist in practice.
I told you. No, but I think this time around, I have had private conversations with the chairman of PRC, Michael Pam, who have certain strong views on the exercise. So I think we will get a very good review.
Well, let me tell you what stronger PURC had been in the past during Kufuor's time, when Kwame Pianim decided that he was not going to yield to executive interference, and he left the job. Until I see that, I don't have faith.
All right, then thank you very much. George from Kotobabi says, God, periodic maintenance by politicians is not permitted. Please mark this down. We are to generate an additional energy of 200 megawatts per year, but ever since this government came in, nothing to that effect. It makes no sense for ECG to request for increments in tariff. They sit in the offices for most customers in my area, especially to tap into their power illegally and push the burden on us. Who is resisting to tap into their load illegally? This is an upset James from Dansoman. Let the minister understand that whenever the light goes off and comes back at any time, it is doomsaw. So you should not come and try to redress what is happening, because a decorated monkey is still a monkey. Doomsaw is still doomsaw. This is coming from Stagger. Thank you very much for spending time with us on this big issue. This episode of The Big Issue. Today we've gone through quite a few topics. It was loaded, but I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Godfred Akuto Boafo. Have a good weekend.